Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
Hi, everybody. This is Harrison Klein for the World United. I am so excited. We are going to be interviewing one of my favorite people in the entire world, one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite just cronies that we kind of like hang out together. She's written a great book, one of the ones that I think is a world changer and a game changer for most everybody. She's a blogger. She's an award-winning author, award-winning master your life, master your mind, master your life program designer. She's a media personality. She's got hundreds of shows on. She's been on hundreds of shows on radio and television, and she blends scientific knowledge with spiritual insight because that's what we're all about here. And she does that excellently in the most phenomenal ways. And I can't wait for you to be excited by what she has to say because it is awesome. So hi, Dianne Collins. How are you tonight?
I am fantastic. Hello, Harrison Klein, and hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here for the World United. And we're uniting the world, right, with every single video broadcast we do. And my very favorite thing, one of my very favorite things to do is to be in conversation with you, Harrison, my very dear friend, soul brother.
We always have fun. We always are soul connected, and we always have, great opportunities and situations that we can parlay into bigger things together. And as a member of the World United, we are here to create this unity consciousness that is going to be extraordinary. And your contribution is going to be about what we talk about tonight. So if I can just dive in, I want to kind of ask you the first question, because the name of your book is,
I'll help you.
Quantum think?
Do you quantum think? New thinking that will rock your world.
New thinking that will rock your world. So what is do you quantum think? What is quantum think?
Okay, well, quantum think is actually what I call a system of thinking, a new system of thinking that is based in quantum principles, spiritual law, universal law of all mastery traditions, and what I combine together with my thinking to make practical in modern daily life. And the objective of it, which is the more important thing, is why should, I ask, why should you want me to quantum think? Okay, why should we? Because we need to be able to live the wisdom. So we're all here wanting the world to be united, wanting the world to be harmonious, wanting ourselves to live in the highest wisdom possible. And so the question for me, I had two vexing questions as I was growing up. And one was, with all the wisdom available now at the touch of a smartphone, how is it as a humanity we're still not living it? And the second question that I was in was, you come across as a seeker along the path, as you think, so you become. And that is, you see it in Buddhism, in Vedanta, in the Bible, and in all the motivational and transformational over the decades that is, we could say, our modern era as well. And so I had the question, Harris, and I thought, well, if all you had to do was change your thought to change the world, then why does it still look the way it does? Why does my life look at the way it does? And this led me, so I had this quest, how do we go from merely knowing the wisdom, conceptually, understanding the wisdom, how do we go from that to actually living it, to embodying it, to be the walking, talking embodiment of it, so that it is our way of being, our way of life. And that led me to create the Quantum Think system of thinking, which is actually 21 principles and practices for the mind and awareness that literally have you give yourself an activation of the wisdom within you. You connect to it. And when that happens, of course, right? How do we learn anything? When we experience something, not just a cognitive understanding, but experiencing it in the feeling tone of our multi-dimensional being, this is when it integrates. So that's the idea of quantum think. That's the intent of it. That's the purpose, the raison d'etre. And that's why I'm here.
Well, it's definitely an important question, because the bottom line is, and as you expressed, the first principle is as you become, so as you think, so you become. So that's really an important process that everybody should know. And it's the one thing that all sages across time in every spiritual tradition has agreed upon. They don't agree upon everything, but they sure agree upon that. So the second question becomes then, who is this for? I mean, we're talking about the world united in this thing. Is there anybody that this is not for, or who is the beneficiary of this process? Who are the best beneficiaries of this process?
Well, right. It is when the wisdom, we each are a unique channel of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
I like to think of it as, Harrison, we're a simultaneous broadcast, right? And so we know that we're born into a certain blueprint. Our soul comes in to this incarnation. We have a blueprint. We have a numerological blueprint. We have a astrological, that's my, hobby, I call it. I'm an avid student of planetary energy cycles. And when we come in, we have these predilections. We're going to be drawn to and also attract that which enables us to express in our own way the wisdom. So when you say, who is it for? So when I was going to say, we all want everyone, right, to enjoy that which we're here to express, that which we're putting out to the world. So I have a little, sort of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I say, quantum thing, not for everyone, but it should be. But it really is for everyone, because the main premise of it, which is very important, and probably the most important aspect of it, other than, connecting to our own higher wisdom to live it, is that I discovered that thinking is a system. And the system is based in another system that we call our worldview, the overarching worldview. So when you look and you think about, why is spirituality, quote, on the side, right? Why have we not been able to speak about, or in our systems and structures that will be changing now? I want to talk more with you about that. But why is it that these things are called alternative? Anything to do with energy healing, thank goodness, meditation and mindfulness has now become very mainstream. So that's good. That's a step along the way, and people are more into taking care of their health and the multidimensional body. But when I look at the premise of quantum think, we're in a quantum age, we're into quantum world, but we're still very much influenced by the earlier worldview, the industrial age worldview, which began in the 17th century. And at that time, the scientists declared only physical matter is real. So when we're not actually, consciously thinking, how is the worldview and the scientific discoveries shaping the way we think, but it's silently in the background orienting us. So when you look at that in, our hearts, souls, and minds, we know we're in a multidimensional reality, but yet this, what I lovingly call old world view, the industrial age worldview, also known as scientific materialism. Why? Because their quest was to study the nature of physical reality, okay? Physics, the physical reality. And so our whole orientation, our education, we don't study the what I call the 5 natural faculties of mind, which is of consciousness. When I use the word mind, I'm talking about what we hold in awareness, what we hold in consciousness, the individualized form of the all that is, all pervasive, one mind, source creator, divine consciousness, how you want to think about it. So when our traditional educational systems, I should call it conventional, because traditional really refers to indigenous cultures, which were wiser, right? But let's say our conventional educational modern systems, what do we study? We study the brain, the physical matter. We study, okay, the brain connections, but we're not studying the 5 natural faculties of mind, which are aspects of our consciousness. Intent, that creates. Intuition, that connects us into that non-local mind field of infinity. I distinguish 5 just so that we can work with them. What's the third one? Subtle energy, where we know we can transform, we can transmute energy. We can take denser energy and transmute it into a more refined state. The 4th natural faculty of mind, resonance. Resonance, we know, is vibrational. Everyone, says everything is energy. It's vibrating at certain frequencies. And we're attracting in sympathetic resonance. That's what we're doing in the frequency range where we are established in. And then the 5th one, meditation. Meditation, I consider a natural faculty of mind because it really connects all the others. And you and I know that the clearer you are, the more centered you are in that center, that column of light that we refer to when we talk about chakras, that when we're centered there, when we're in that serene state of silence, this is the meditative state. That's the silence of the universe, and that's what we're connecting into. So in that state, we have the most clarity. So when you talk about who is this for, anybody who wants to master what it is to create a great life, very simple, for themselves, for their families, communities, and for the world that we all share. That's who quantum think is for. And this is how it works. So that premise, just to wrap up this part of the conversation, that premise, we're in a quantum age, still very much under the influence, without even realizing it, of the industrial age, which was an age of separation in the physical. You look separate, we look separate from the earth, we look different, you're red, I'm yellow, you're white, you're black, whatever. And so when you look at this from this larger perspective, and you realize that we can literally take a literal quantum leap in consciousness to the more expansive, up-to-date, accurate worldview according to cutting-edge science and universal wisdom of all mastery traditions. So that's who it's for. You want to master yourself, and the world. This is the purpose of quantum thing.
And you know that most of us believe, and we're talking about unity consciousness here, so most of us believe that, there are distinctions between human beings. Somebody's an entrepreneur, somebody's an author, somebody's a, athlete, somebody is a spiritual guide, whatever the case may be. Is there a difference in these distinctions and the way that we quantum think? Because there's one thing that's a principle, there's another thing in the application. So, so let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that you brought up, of course, Harrison Klein, one of the wisest men, persons. Well, you are a man, so let's call it that. There's so many genders now, but I know you you identify as a man, right? As universal citizen, whatever, galactic being, intergalactic. We'll take them all. But the point is that you would bring up that very important piece of wisdom in your question. And that is that from a quantum think perspective, we are both the transcendent being with a capital B. We are part and parcel of that all that is, the I am presence. That's, I know, a big part of your work. So we are that transcendence, and at the same time, we are the imminent self. So you could say, what is the imminent self? Is the worldly self, where you're Harrison, I'm Dianne, you're a man, I'm a woman, and all the different roles that we play. You're a transformational teacher, I'm a quantum think something that let's not identify there. But the point being is that all the roles we play, as son, as daughter, as parent, as community organizer, whatever role that we're each playing in the worldly sense, this is that part of our ego identity. Now, from my perspective, it's very important to, I say, love your ego, love yourself. A lot of people on a spiritual path they love bashing the ego. I love loving the ego because we are that identity, okay? So that transcendence is working through each one of us, as I mentioned, in that unique way, right? There's no other Harrison Klein. There's no other Dianne Collins. This is what makes this world so amazing, so tremendous, like awesome beyond what we can even imagine. And it's to know that you can live those, we are living those two simultaneously. So when you go into, let's say, a yogic tradition, and I, with my husband and partner in all things, Master Quantum Think, Alan Collins, he's on here, he's part of this too, that, what was I going to say about it? I had to give Alan a shout out. But what I was going to say is that we have been in our own spiritual practice for over 30 years. And so, and I like to study these different lineages, and any self-realized master, you're coming to my town, I'm coming to see you. Because we, as you said earlier, Harrison, we want to be in the highest vibrational fields. So we put ourselves into where that's going on, at least we like to consciously. So when you, what was your question again? I wanted to say something about this. I don't know. I got lost as soon as I mentioned Alan. It must have been that the idea.
The distinction between, different
Right.
beingness.
That's exactly right. The yogic, in the yogic traditions, okay, so one of the practices, and this is one of the practices, and one of the distinctions of quantum think is called the perspective of all perspectives. This is going to lead us into what's going on in the world now. And that, what does that mean? It means that you're in that transcendent awareness. I was going to say, in yogic traditions, the watcher, right?
Yeah,
so some people think that you could only be the watcher, and that you have to stay there and, don't get mixed up with your ego. But I think the idea is, and the practice for that distinction in quantum think, perspective of all perspectives, the practice is to practice non-attachment. So if I could make that distinction to that very wise question you asked, that it's not a question of obliterating your ego. It's a question of false identity. I call it not even false, wrong identification, where you're identified with these roles you play. Whereas when you're living simultaneously in the transcendent state, realizing that you are, like the masters say, be like a master, see life like watching a movie. So you're not attached to it, but yet you can live it into it fully, enjoying it. It becomes even more enriching when you can own all those aspects of the self.
Would you say, just playing with this concept, would you say that one of the reasons we come into this incarnation is egoicness, is being the ego? Because that is the essence of coming into carnation. It is the outside of the transcendent experience. So, living in the physical plane is an egoic experience. Living in the transcendent state is the elevation above the egoic state. So would you say that egoic state is connected and directly influential to the transcendent state?
Absolutely, because it's one. We're talking about, right, the world united. Actually, I'm going to be talking about, in my presentation, I'm going to be talking about the self united. You didn't know that. But in order to have the world united, you've got to have the self united. And it's exactly what you're saying, Harrison. And this is what I've been talking about, is that you have to have the ego, because this is what physical incarnation is all about. Otherwise, who are we? Well, maybe we're in the angelic realm, the soulful realm, who knows, the non-material. That's another part of the conversation. But as long as we are in this physical realm, and we are in all those realms simultaneously, I call it living fully dimensionally, because we're living in every aspect of life, everything in life. But just to complete on what you're saying, the physical is the egoic, but we have this concept that the ego is bad. The ego isn't bad. What we're here to do is, in my view, attain that highest level of self, with a capital S, mastery, which includes all of it. So when
what is the bridge?
What is the bridge? Well,
bridge where most live in their egoic state because they're physical. They're physical and they're influenced by the traditional, past worldviews. And now we become to understand the quantum, which is multidimensional. What's the bridge between living in that physical place, that egoic state, and then coming into the transcendent?
Well, I don't think it requires a bridge. I mean, we could make up a bridge. Look, everything is made up, okay? Because here we are, we've been given by divine birthright the ability to create, right? And it's so there's circumstances, and then how we're related to the circumstances. And this is what we're talking about. So if you have a bridge, see what we call in quantum think, I call a new worldview of learning, the art of distinguishing. So let's say what's an old worldview of learning, which we still need and want. When I say the industrial age worldview and how it taught us to separate, categorize, analyze, and ordinary logic, and all these genius things that have come out of the industrial age, we're not dropping it. We're expanding upon it. So when I say, excuse me, or I'll call it old worldview, because I always say that with love, the old worldview of learning, and which is to, acquire data, memorize it, maybe learn it, and then apply it. Whereas quantum thinking has a different method. In quantum think, how do we learn it? How does this, how do we start integrating any of the wisdom? It's a connection. So there's, what happens is, when you distinguish something, is to bring something into your awareness right now, in the present moment, in such a way that you have an experiential expansion, a shift, a leap, maybe just an insight. So when we say, what's the bridge? Okay. Once you get these various distinctions, and these distinctions, as I say, I'm not telling you anything you don't know at some level of your being. If you didn't know it or weren't in some way connected to it, you would not be able to relate to it. So we're talking about activation and awareness. So, are we going to say it, Harrison? You were trying to ask?
No, I was saying, you're doing great. It's coming out great. So good.
Okay, good. Well, I like to talk about that everything in life has existence, and I distinguish 7 dimensions. Look, people have all kinds of distinctions, right? And the distinctions are what give us access to that knowledge, that wisdom. So you have a set of distinctions in your work. This is a set of distinctions in my work. But so it's an infinite possibility universe. That's quantum think principle number 3. So literally, we could distinguish any number of dimensions. But for the sake of practicality, I distinguish 7 dimensions, and I call it living FD, living FD, 3D, 5D, FD.
Fully dimensional.
What?
Fully dimensional.
Right, fully dimensionally, because every aspect of life has it. We have a physical dimension. We have an energy, that's obviously of the body and anything related physically. The obvious everyday world that we live in, as you pointed out, you have to have that egoic state. We have the energetic dimension, which is the subtle energy that we all talk about, that's invisible to most, but some people can see it. We have the spiritual dimension, which is the dimension of heart. Now, in some mastery traditions, they say the mind is located in the spiritual heart. So that's another distinction, expansion we can make. If from an industrial age to a quantum age, we move from an either-or reality. Well, should I stay in my mind or leave my mind and stay in the heart? No, it's both. And when you look at it in these various perspectives, that's one mastery tradition perspective, and you realize that the mind awareness is centered in the spiritual heart. So when I say the 3rd dimension, of the seven I'm distinguishing now is the spiritual dimension, where we all experience ourselves as united, as one, as aspects of the one. The rest are distinctions. So we say it like this in quantum thinking: there are distinctions, but no actual separation. There's no separation. We're not, as you, I think, mentioned earlier, Harrison, we're not separate from each other. We're not separate from the earth. We're not separate from the cosmos. We're not separate from the air that we call air, prana, right? Oxygen that we're breathing in and out.
Yeah, we couldn't be, because we couldn't be defined. There's no such thing as isolation in that way. We couldn't
Exactly.
couldn't be defined as anything if we were separate anyway, because nothing exists without some sort of a background, foreground, or something around it. So it's and there's the borders of our skin are not the end of who we are.
That's exactly it. I mean, we're always emanating out. Now, listen, that's the good news. And let me just name the other dimensions, because otherwise Alan will be listening to this and say, I didn't finish. But okay, the seven dimensions. Okay, physical, energetic, spiritual, the virtual, which is the mind, right? And awareness, consciousness, and all extensions, including the internet. So the fifth is what I call the cosmic dimension. And it's the operating principles in nature. So this is what scientists discover, these operating principles, and then figure out how we can all use them, right, to our advantage in life. So that's the fifth. The sixth is the esoteric dimension, and that's the dimension of soul, where we're talking about that if you subscribe to such reality, incarnate, right? Your soul comes in for the purpose of the evolving of our own soul. And the seventh dimension being the divine, which is again beyond, the ultimate mystery that we forever want to experience, know ourselves in the experience of being one with. So anyway, that's the seventh dimension. Let's go back to what I just wanted people to be able to hear all of it. But what you were saying, please continue.
Well, what I was trying to also uncover was your connection to the whatever the bridge is of our senses to these other dimensions, because most of us live within the sensory fields, and there are other dimensions other than the sensory field. So what is the sensory field? How does it fit into these dimensions?
Well, the sensory field, it depends on how you look at the senses. In Vedanta, they say there are 11 senses, but let's just say, and then some people consider intuition the sixth sense. But if you're talking about just the 5 physical senses, I'm not quite sure what you mean by it. But I think that when you start to live fully dimensionally in your awareness, then you realize that this is where we manifest, right? But we're manifesting in other ways too. We're manifesting because of the feeling tone of our body. But I think what is important, what I liked about what you were saying, Harrison, is that, and I often say it that way myself, is that we don't end at the edge of our body. We don't end there, but it's like, I think of it like this in terms of the senses, like the body, but the multi-dimensional body is one big sensing device. So it's like we can sense things, and that's a big word. So however people think about sensing things, before they happen, right? We have
Yes.
this called precognition. We can sense things when we walk into a room of people, We can sense a lot of things. I think what's important about what we're saying so far is that it's time for all of us as a humanity to make this expansion conscious. Now, because of the pandemic that we're still in the midst of at the time that we are recording this, because of this, we've been forced, right? We've been forced to go in and go home, cover up, and be reflective. And and this is really part of this amazing, awesome, beyond awesome intelligence of this universal, infinite intelligence that is guiding all of us, and that we are collaborating, right? We're collaborating with infinite intelligence. So what I like to say is that
if we're having life, go ahead.
No, I'm waiting for you, you're waiting for me, but that I say we're going to evolve. We're here to evolve. What's it going to be? Crisis awakening or conscious awakening? So the idea of our work, and I know your work, your beautiful fiance, dear, 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 beautiful sister friend, Marbeth Dunn, her work, my husband, Alan Collins' work, we're here to evoke conscious awakening. That means a conscious act of choosing to consciously awaken. And when we can do this in a field effect, Dr. Yugandhar, amazing being that he is, and he's asking, right, all of us, but how do we have this effect? How do we do it? And everyone has their own way of saying it. But what I'm saying and calling upon every single one of us, it's time for us to bring ourselves forward as, even if you're not in a formally leadership position in the worldly roles that you play, each one of us is being called upon to be the leader of those talents, gifts, insights, proclivities that we have been divinely bestowed with by each of our human birth, and to bring that forth and to express that now in a new way, because in fact, we are in a great shift. And at the end of this year, which is 2020, where we're going to be going more into the Aquarian energy. You know, we've been hearing about, you and I like to sing, this is the dawning of the, you're not singing with me, Harrison, and age of Aquarius, right, of course. But the point being that what is the age of Aquarius? And we're already in it the way that the ages, there's a 2,500 year age astrologically, Western astrology I'm talking about speaking. There's a 25,000 age that is also shifting right now. And there are all these planetary cycles that guide our attention, that move us along. So we're already into it, and it's not a sharp demarcation. These planetary cycles, these trends, I call them energies of the time, that guide us. When you're tuned in, this is the important thing, to expand ourselves, our awareness, our own insight, our own intuition, the power of our intent, all of it, so that we can attune to the subtle energy that's actually being communicated to us. Where should we be focused now? Well, we want to be able to do this consciously. So that's what I love about studying astrology, because when you look at what's going on with the planets, and we realize at the end in December of this year, 2020, that there's going to be a big thrust of the Aquarian energy. And what is the Aquarian energy? What are the characteristics? Well, it has to do with the brotherhood, sisterhood of humanity coming together. And I know there's going to be a big, I think, right, 100 million person-wide meditation on December 21st of this year.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of this, the world united. So the point, which is perfect, right? Because that's the actual day that these two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, start a new 20-year cycle in Aquarius. So Aquarius is about higher mind. It's an intellect. It's thinking, it's new thinking, it's the unusual, it's ruled by Uranus, which Uranus brings about sudden change, upheavals in the status quo. And we all already feel it, okay? And we're looking at how do we fit in? Well, when you can have these understandings, you can see that, well, of course, our systems and structures, well, I wanted to say one other thing before I go to the symbol, they call it the glyph, of Aquarius is the water bearer. So you're serving humanity. And we're all here now to be that in service to humanity, in service to one another. You start with yourself by knowing who you are, by expanding yourself, by learning how to use your own, what we've been given, I call the clay of creation, which are these distinctions of mind and consciousness. That's the big paradigm shift from the old science to the new science, that it's instead of a matter-based reality, we make that shift to a consciousness-based reality. Of course, it's both. And it's, you know, it's all working together. But it's time for each one of us, because we need to be here bringing about this emergence of the new. But we need to do it consciously, because if we don't do it consciously, then if we go into a fear reaction because we're watching systems and structures break down around us, we're watching what people like to call the shadow side, right? Whatever has one of my astrology teacher calls it, whatever has been suppressed is getting exposed right now, okay? But if we don't learn how to be in the conscious, highest frequency state, then we falter and we go into the fear reaction, the doubt, the insecurity, all those lower, denser emotions, and go into those knee-jerk, they're not even really the decisions, they're just actions that are reactions rather than, hey, new world is emerging. We're going into the time where, you know this as well as I do, and we both like to study the financial markets. The technology is a huge contribution to this coming about. Look where we are right now using it. When you look at the financial markets, you know, I had this thought today. I have to tell you about, you know, what are these new, we've been astrologically, we're in a 16-year period of restructuring of systems and structures, governments, corporations, all of it, all societal systems. And I bring it back to quantum think, make sense of it. Why? Because our systems and structures were born of thinking that was influenced by industrial age, separation, cause and effect, boil it down to its constituent parts and push it all around like mechanically. But yet we're in the quantum age, so now we need to restructure, not throw out the old structures, restructure what needs to be refined, what needs to be adjusted, so that we can together welcome, in a world united, this new emerging world where everyone is productive, where everyone has a great life, where we all get along because we know we're here sharing it all together as one, as the world united. And this is what's going on now. And I like talking about this because I don't want people to be stuck in anything fearful. Things are supposed to break down now, but we have to step forward and make sure that we make the adjustments. And people are doing this in their own personal life. Obviously, people are all at home working. The future of work has been talked about, as you know, because you're also in entrepreneurial circles, Harrison. What's the future of work? What's going to happen when, augmented reality, 3D printing, flying cars, autonomous cars, all these things are happening right now. So it behooves all of us to start to pay attention and to be able to embrace it and use it, everything, to our advantage. Make sense?
So is this, yeah, 100%. So this is the thesis of quantum think, is to move into this inclusion, unity consciousness, right? And then to create from the space of wholeness as opposed to the space of fragmentation, as opposed to the space of, this distinction versus this distinction. So we move into a place where we adapt on a bigger scale. So the adaptation is not the rejection, it is the inclusion of all things, simultaneously using everything that we can, because we are now more adjustably aware. So, and in that space, we are better at, sustaining things. We're better at understanding things, and we're better at applying things. So is this a process or is it a discipline? I'll kind of end up with all that. And, what is the process if there is, and what is the discipline if there is?
Well, the process, if we said it's a process, is the art of distinguishing. So the entire quantum think system is in my book, Do You Quantum Think? I did produce a 28-day video program, Master Your Mind, Master Your Life, where it's me applying quantum think, showing you how to apply it to mastering the 5 natural faculties of mind, mastering high quality relationships, mastering a conscious relationship with money, and mastering living your purpose. So you can get it that way. Alan and I also have an audio program called, it's Quantum Think, it's on quantumthink.net, and it's called Quantum Think Audio Coach, Thinking for a New World, where we deliver the 10 core distinctions of quantum think. Quantum think is, I call it 21 plus 1, because the 22nd one is actually the distinction living fully dimensionally. So the idea is that you could call it a process, but however you like to imbibe quantum thinking, it's always in relationship to your own awareness. So what I'm doing is I'm presencing these principles, this wisdom that is living in each one of us, through us. And if you haven't heard some of it, you'll connect to it because it's universal. in each one of us. And that's how it works. So these are the resources, you know, I have hundreds of interviews online, but these are the resources that we have created where you can start to imbibe what it is to live and think as a quantum thinker. And, you know, that's my moonshot, as they call it. What's your big, bold goal in life is that we have a quantum thinking world. That's mine, because when we have a quantum thinking world, everyone is living in their highest state of mastery. And as you said, Harrison, it's inclusionary. We're including and we're growing together and we're collaborating and we're co-creating together. And, you know, before we go, I think we're at the end of our time, but I did want to bring up something that I know is near and dear to your heart and mine, and see what you have to say about it too, because I had this thought. I listen a lot to the financial news channels. Excuse me one moment. So you and I love that, right? And you work with people, having them be more prosperous. And so as I was listening to it the last few days, I had this realization, because, you know, the stock market, the analysts and the experts, and they always go back to the past and the trends. Okay, that's good, right? Look at the analytics. I mean, there's a lot to it. And I'm doing basically a self-education about it. My husband says I'm obsessed, but anyway. And it's a very interesting thing, because people today can become wealthy way more easily. So many opportunities that are open to everyone. And especially, you know, hopefully you in cities and countries that you have an internet connection, which helps for what we're talking about. But what I realized, Harrison, and I'd like to know what you think about it, is that, because I've always had this vision that why can't everyone be rich? Why do we have to say money is, you know, evil and all this stuff when it's not? Money's not spiritual. That's part of my Money Week in the Master Your Mind series of the videos, that, you know, creating a conscious relationship with money, realizing that money at its source, money is a representation and a symbolic way to exchange our creative output from each one of us that springs forth from the soul, that's given to us by the divine. So I say, okay, is money divine? Yeah, at its source it is. And a lot of people talk about money being an exchange of energy. It's that too. Again, living FD, fully dimensionally, you can look at money through the dimensions. Actually, that's in the last chapter of my book, next to the last. So the point being that I had this realization, because I've always had this vision. Why should anyone be poor? We don't have to have that be a sustained reality. And that we have that opportunity now that everyone can become wealthy and wealthier with ease. And it's not a, you know, it's not a Pollyanna, you know, like, it's real. I'd like to know what you think about what I'm saying. That's a shift today.
Sure. Well, wealth and poverty are really basically, you know, not accidents. Neither of them are accidents. They are about conscious applications of principles that have to do with your self-esteem, that have to do with your understanding of how the world works, and that have to do with what what is the rent that you pay for being in this body? And that's service. The rent you pay for being in this body is service to other human beings. And those who serve well, who make great contributions to that energetically, become wealthy. They create value for others. They create delight for others. They create products for others. They create things that matter to other people. That's where wealth comes from. So as we become more connected to ourselves and to the bigger whole, we feel more worthy. So our creativity is better. Our ability to receive is stronger because we want to, because we are now, doing something massively valuable. So we feel valuable, and so more things come to us by the law of attraction, and so on and so forth. So, there are hundreds of different ways in which we can create to serve other people, and maybe thousands and maybe even millions. But whatever that is, it's a matter of the connection. So money is just a connection between you, the quantum field, and what you think has value in the world, and then what you can convince other people, or what you can, show other people has value for them.
Right.
So,
and beautifully said. Did I interrupt?
No.
Because, but I wanted to bring it to today because I'm talking about the systems and structures being restructured, the societal systems. And this is one of the most important ones because, I say in my video, money is central to life. What I say, even beggars need money. Everybody needs money. Charities need money, nonprofits. Everyone needs money. So let's have, as you say, and you said it absolutely articulated that beautifully for everyone. And what I'm adding to that, Harrison, is that today, that structure that we call wealth, I'm saying is going to be very, very different in the best of ways. And when we can think of it that way, I think that will, poverty, when we talk about poverty and we look at it also multidimensionally, because you can have poverty of spirit, but when you have poverty in this world, when we can eliminate that, I don't want to say when we have it, I want to say we can eliminate poverty.
Sure.
And that will be a huge, you want to talk about awakening?
Yeah.
I mean, huge, because then, we can all go, if we're at survival level, physically, okay, and some people may not agree with me on this because they think, oh, you came to the earth, you have to learn, this is what you have to be challenged with, and some people are poor and they have to bring themselves up. Well, maybe that's an old way of relating to reality. Maybe as we become conscious creators, that it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Maybe up until this point in the evolution of humanity, that it was that way, but it no longer has to be that way. So this is what I see as a very important aspect of the world united, is that we can lift everyone with us, and we can have people enjoy to whatever extent they want to. Not everyone likes the same level of materiality, and that's not relevant to what I'm saying, but it's just the idea that we'll be able to enjoy this bountiful, abundant, superlative world that we all share.
Yes. So, it's not about money, it's about mission, and it's about inspiration. poor people don't need more money. What they need is inspiration so that they can access their resources, be creative, and they will be wealthy from the creativity that they are. So that wealth will translate into multiple dimensions in a great, great way. I want to kind of wind up our system today. How do we get a hold of Dianne Collins, and why do you quantum think? How do you quantum think?
Okay, well, the best place is my website, which is going to be renewed very soon. Dianne, speaking of restructuring, it's in the period of restructuring, but it's Dianne with 2 N's, Collins.com, DianneCollins.com. And you'll see everything there. If you want, Do You Quantum Think? The book is available on Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. And you'll get access to everything from my website, my social media, YouTube channel, all of it is there. So thank you so much for this.
We solve a lot of problems when we're in a position of leadership, when we're in a position of love. We solve what humanity is experiencing so that we can experience a better connection for all those things together. We understand that without vision, the people perish, as Solomon said. There's a place where we are now in a revolution of consciousness, and you're a leader in that process, where we're in a revolution of values, or we're in a revolution of education, and that we don't want to think small anymore. Even the least among us can be the greatest of servants. And so, all of that has to do with, what would you become if you could, and you understood the way everything works. Thank you, Dianne Collins.
That's it. Thank you. Namaste and lots of love.
Lots of love to everybody. Everybody, thank you for the World United. Thank you to join with Dianne Collins. See the better world. Become the better world. What you think about, you become. Become the World United, because you are already. Realize that that's all that needs to be done. Thank you, Dianne Collins.